What's up, guys? If you are interested in doing a Ferrari F136 swap like this here, I'm going to be giving you all the information I know. I'm currently working on my second swap, so I do know a bit of information about it, and I'm going to share it with you, so let's get right into it. So first off, let's start at the intake manifold. This is a Ferrari F430 intake manifold, and from the factory it is facing the rear of the engine, which would usually be facing the rear of the car in a mid-engine Ferrari F430. But with this and any other intake manifold, you can rotate them 180 degrees, so this could be facing forward or backward. Same with the Ferrari California and the factory Maserati one. And as far as I know, those are the only three that work, and there are a few variants of the Maserati intake. Now, with the Ferrari California intake, you're going to need to weld your fuel injector bungs onto the side of it because those are direct injection engines. These are port injection, just like the factory Maserati. So the factory Maserati fuel rail fits right in, and then you just need to weld new tabs onto the fuel rail for that. Now for the coil packs look a lot like an Audi R8 coil pack. They might be identical even. They do have a different plug though, and I do know Audi R8 coil packs fit in pretty well, so they are a good cheap swap to get rid of the Maserati or Ferrari ones. Now the two main differences between the engines are there's a dry sump and a wet sump engine. So this is a wet sump engine, so it has an oil pan underneath, and it is rear sump and sort of almost like more than mid sump. So if you're going to put it into a front sump car like I'm doing, don't. Super pain. I have to push the engine super far back to clear the steering rack, and in my case a dry sump engine would have been easier. I figured this would have been easier than doing the dry sump oil tank and all the lines and everything like we dealt with on the FRS, but that's not the case, and I'm just living with my mistakes, whatever. Now as far as wiring goes, you're going to have to do custom wiring harness because there's nothing available on the market, but it's really simple. It's just the same as wiring up any other standalone engine system, and you just got to connect wires to the ECU and let it rip. Now for the adapter kit, we adapted this to a Nissan CD09 transmission with a Speed Gems adapter kit. The whole adaptation system, that's all handled by them. It's all super simple. You do need the flex plate from the automatic transmission version. So if you do, I believe the dry sumps only come on F1 transmission vehicles, so you do need the automatic transmission flex plate, but they swap back and forth just the same, and then the rest of the swap is handled by their swap kit. It's super simple. Now when we did the dry sump in the FRS, we actually made a custom adapter underneath to go from the 3-bolt, which is kind of under here on the passenger rear of the engine on the bottom, and we made an adapter to go from that to an AN weld bung, and then with AN line back to a rear mounted dry sump tank that was in the back seat area. Now we don't have to deal with that with this. We just have to make the oil pan fit in there. Now another difference with the dry sump and wet sump that I did notice is, even though it is a rear sump oil pan, so the sump is at the back, the overall height of the engine, even at the front of where the sump isn't, is still taller on the wet sump engine than it is on the dry sump engine. So in theory, if I put a dry sump engine in my car instead, the engine could sit down another inch or so and also not sit as far forward as I have it mounted. Now the main difference you can tell between the dry sump and the wet sump is the valve covers. So the wet sump engines have blue valve covers and an oil fill cap right here, where the wet sump is red valve covers with no oil fill cap because you don't fill the engine up with oil, you fill the oil tank. Now we did have to do a couple of custom things on this engine. At the back of the heads there is 2 banjo bolts that sort of connect together and go into the cooling system. They didn't clear with the firewall and the transmission adapter and everything, so what I did was cut the lines off and weld AN weld bungs onto each side, and then we're going to tee those together and along with a few other things and make those go to the expansion tank for the cooling system. Down here you can see this adapter right there going to another AN line. That is the coolant inlet or outlet, I don't remember, that used to go to the transmission cooler block that was placed under the intake manifold. I made this adapter, and if it works out well, I'm going to be selling them. And this basically gets rid of the block and just gives you another outlet to help bleed the cooling system of air. So this fitting right here was a 3/8 NPT, same thread pitch, but it was not a tapered. So I just tapped it with a NPT tap, so it's tapered thread, and then that went right in there. Now for the oil filter, I know the dry sump oil filter system is a little bit different, but for the wet sump oil filter, I got an adapter from Permacool, part number 70955, and that screws onto the engine itself. It is a 1-12 thread pitch on the oil filter on the engine, and then it also includes the relocation filter. And then I got a Wix 51769 oil filter, which is all the correct specs and everything, and it's, you know, super massive. And when you're running a remote mount oil filter, you can just mount this wherever you want it in the car, usually somewhere super accessible up front, so that it makes your oil changes super easy and super not messy. And you really don't need to change this as often because it's twice the size of the stock one at least. Now on the exhaust system, the Ferrari California and the Maserati Quattroportes have a weird EGR system that is below the exhaust ports, and it's these tiny, about 1/8 holes that go from the exhaust port down into this channel. And what you can do is take an 1/8 welding rod and a drill bit that's slightly smaller than an 1/8 and drill through them, put some Loctite on the welding rod and bang the welding rod in there, and that will seal that whole system up. And then you don't have to worry about sealing it up later with either a weird flange on your manifold, or if you're putting F430 manifolds or headers on there, it won't cause any issues. Now all of the headers as well, between California, Maserati, and F430, all bolt up to the engines just the same as one another. And I believe the Ferrari California has bigger runners than the Maserati, but it is a similar shape and size, so they should be a pretty easy swap in most cases. Ferrari California is what we ran on the FRS. Now if you're going to be running an F430 intake manifold like this one here, it does have this valve right here, this actuator, and basically that splits the plenums or allows the plenums to open up and cross over in between. So what you want is under full vacuum, it opens up, and then that allows air to cross through from one plenum to the other. That's going to be open at low RPM. And then when you're, low throttle, that's going to be open. And then when you're about 75% throttle, you want it to be fully closed so that the air is just coming in the throttle body, shooting straight down. Now another thing about the throttle bodies is the Maserati and the Ferrari throttle bodies are the same, along with the throttle body flanges on each side. They're the same, and you could just take one off of your Maserati intake, throw it on here, and then just buy another one. And the biggest difference is actually the Maserati flange is made out of aluminum, whereas the Ferrari flange is made out of plastic. I think the Maserati ones honestly look a little bit better, and they're a lot cheaper. Now another difference that I've noticed is the motor mount plates on the sides of the motor are different between the dry sump and the wet sump. The dry sump has 6 motor mount bolts on each side, where the wet sump only has 4, and they're totally different flange pattern and everything. So I had to redesign that when I was making these, because I had the design for the wet sump plates that just bolt onto the side, and they're different. Another thing I noticed is the up front where the accessories are, the whole accessory drive is mostly different, except the alternator is still in the same location under the intake manifold, and then the coolant port outlets are in a different spot as well. Now on the front of this engine there is a coolant temperature sensor port. I was able to take that out and put a GM sensor right in its spot without any tapping or rethreading or anything. It was M12 by 1.5, I believe. And then under the intake manifold there's an oil pressure sensor port, and that is M14 by 1.5, I believe. And I got an adapter to go from that to a 1/8 NPT, so that I could just use a standard off-the-shelf oil pressure sensor and know all the values for it to enter them into my standalone ECU. And that's also the same reason why I'm using the GM coolant temperature sensor, is because those standard values are just very well known, and I can just put them right in my ECU. Now, internally, the biggest differences between the Ferrari and the Maserati engines are obviously going to be the crankshaft. One is a flat plane and the other is a cross plane being the Maserati. But then also the connecting rods are going to be different, I know for sure, because they all have a different stroke. And then the camshafts are going to be different to make up for the different timing of the flat plane crank. So if you want to convert a Maserati to a flat plane, pretty much just don't. And you should just buy a flat plane engine. Even though they're really expensive and the cross planes are not, the price wouldn't really make up for it until somebody aftermarket makes a crankshaft kit for this, but I doubt that's ever going to happen. Now, as far as tuning and all of that stuff goes, the base map that we used for the FRS was actually a Chevy LS3 base map, because they both have a 58 tooth or 60-2 crank trigger, and they have the same kind of cam trigger. I forget exactly what it is, but they're both the same, and then you just need to add 2 VVT outputs onto that tune, and then you can run it just as normal. Both the VVTs are just a standard PWM signal, as most VVTs are. They receive oil, PWM sends a certain amount of oil past and changes the rotation of the VVT system. Then you have NOx sensors, oil pressure, coolant temp, coil packs, fuel. All that is basically standard across any engine. And if you don't really understand that, then check out HP Academy and they can kind of get you caught up on all the general standalone ECU systems. Now, the fuel rails use a weird inverted flare type fitting with an adjuster or a removable nut that comes off of it. I kind of recommend just using the existing Y pipe and then go from here to your fuel pressure regulator or whatever. Now, on the power steering pump, this adapter is from GK Tech, and it is for an S13. It is the 16mm one, and it has the O-ring on the inside. It usually goes on the power steering rack, but it screwed right into there, and then I could just make an AN line to go from there to the rack. Now, if there's anything else you have a question about, just let me know in the comments, and I will try to answer it if I know the answer to it. If not, I will tell you I don't know, or I'll figure it out. Thanks.